Dzień dobry.
Good morning.
Witamy serdecznie Państwa
We
na
welcome
prezentacji
you during the presentation
grupy
of the
ORLEN w pierwszym
financial
kwartale
results of
2025
ORLEN Group after the first
Jesteśmy,
quarter of
jak zwykle,
2025.
w siedzibie Giełdy Papierów Wartościowych w Warszawie. Z
As
nami jest
usual,
prezes
we
Ireneusz
are in the
Fonfara,
Warsaw Stock
pani
Exchange.
prezes
We're welcoming
Magdalena
Jakub
Bartoś. Ja nazywam się
Ireneusz
Kuba Freilich,
Fonfara,
jestem dyrektorem
Magdalena
relacji
Bartoś.
inwestorskich.
I'm Jakub Freilich,
Na
the
wstępie
Director of
chciałbym
Investor
Państwa zaprosić
Relations
na krótki
Office.
film.
At the very beginning, I would like to
Mówimy
invite
dużo
you
o
to watch a
megawatach,
short video.
megawattogodzinach,
We are talking
baryłkach,
about
litrach, a
megawatts,
chcieliśmy
barrels of
praktycznie
oils,
pokazać,
liters,
jak
but we would
nasze
like to
inwestycje
show you
przekładają się na wasze
practically how our
codzienne życie, na nasze
investment
codzienne
translates to our
Potem
everyday
zaprosimy
lives.
pana prezesa
After that,
do
we will
zaprezentowania
invite
perspektywy
the president
strategicznej,
to
a potem
present the
pani
strategy,
prezes omówi wyniki
and
operacyjne
then the
finansowe
vice president will talk about
pierwszego
the
kwartału
financial
tego
results of the first quarter
A
of this
potem
year.
będziemy mieli
And
sesję
after that,
pytań.
we'll have a Q&A
Także ja
session.
dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very
Zapraszam do
much.
kina, a
Please
potem pana
do
prezesa.
enjoy the video.
Dzień dobry Państwu.
Good morning.
Kolejny raz spotykamy się,
We are
aby
meeting
omówić
here
wyniki
yet
kwartału,
again to
pierwszego
talk
kwartału
about the
tego roku.
results of the first quarter of this year.
I z prawdziwą dumą w imieniu
We are very
wszystkich
proud.
pracowników koncernu mogę powiedzieć, że to był
In the name
bardzo
of the
dobry
all
kwartał.
employees, I can say that it was a
Znakomity
very good
wręcz
quarter,
Zarówno pod względem finansowym, jak i
both when it
operacyjnym.
comes to finances and operational
Ale
activities.
przede wszystkim był to najlepszy kwartał dla naszych
But
akcjonariuszy.
it
9
was one
stycznia
of the
ogłosiliśmy nową
best
strategię.
quarters
Energię
for our
rozpoczęliśmy dziś.
shareholders. On this
Widzieliście to
9th
Państwo przed
of
chwilą.
January,
tym
we
czasie
introduced a new strategy.
Rynek
In this
czyli
time,
inwestorzy,
the market,
akcjonariusze.
that is investors and shareholders,
tak przyjęli tą strategię i takim zaufaniem nas obdarzyli,
Gave us
że
a lot of
kurs
trust.
wzrósł o połowę.
the
Jest najwyższy w
prices
historii
grew
połączonego
for
koncernu.
50%. Is the highest in the
Dziękujemy za
history.
to zaufanie.
Thank you very
Dziękujemy
much for your
inwestorom i
trust.
akcjonariuszom.
Thank you to the investors and shareholders.
Pracujemy z myślą akcjonariuszy.
We are working, thinking
przede
about the
wszystkim dziękuję całemu
shareholders.
zespołowi.
But first of all, thank you very much to the whole
68
team,
pracowników
to
Orlenu, którzy codzienną
68,000
pracą,
employees of Orlen,
zaangażowaniem,
with their daily work
poświęceniem czasami też.
and sacrifices at
Przyczynili
times,
się do tego sukcesu.
helped us to achieve
To wasz
this
sukces,
success.
bardzo wam
It is
wszystkim
your
dziękuję.
success. Thank you very much.
Pracujemy tak, żeby Orlen był
We
firmą
are
o
working in
stabilnych,
a way
mocnych
that
fundamentach,
Orlen
aby
is
był
becoming
dumą
a
polskiej
company
gospodarki,
with solid fundamentals.
żebyśmy mogli
That is a
z dumą
pride of Polish
twierdzić,
economy. We are
że
working in a
to
way
jest czempion polskiej
in
gospodarki.
which we
To
can
jest nasz
claim
cel.
that we are the leaders of the Polish economy. This is our
A
goal.
teraz trochę konkretów.
And
jak
now
widzicie.
let's go back to the data.
Okej, tylko chciałem sprawdzić. EBITDA LIFO wzrosła
EBITDA
o
LIFO
40%.
grew by 40%.
Dlaczego EBITDA LIFO dla nas jako menedżerów to jest najważniejsze?
For us as managers, this is the most important index assessing the functioning of the company.
Spadło zadłużenie.
Net
struktura
grew
przychodów
by
utrzymuje się podobnie,
60%.
1/3
The
mniej
debt
przychodów
fell down.
pochodzi z działalności
1/3 of our profit comes from our activities abroad.
Spadły ceny hurtowe ropy naftowej, a w konsekwencji
The
tego spadły
prices
ceny,
of oil
ceny hurtowe paliw i spadły
dropped.
marże i
As a
spadły
result, the prices of fuel dropped as well, and margins. We can say with a lot of satisfaction that the prices of fuels
Konsekwencja dla nas
dropped as
taka,
well.
że o 10%
As a result,
spadły przychody firmy, ale to nie ma
The
znaczenia
incomes
dla
of the
sposobu
company
widzenia
dropped by
wyników
10%.
finansowych.
It doesn't really matter a lot when it comes to our financial results, though.
I teraz myślę, możemy omówić
And
wszystkie
now,
4 segmenty,
I think that we
w
can
których,
talk about
w
all of
strategii
the 4
podzieliliśmy naszą
which
naszą
we
działalność. Zwracam tylko techniczną
talked
uwagę,
about in our
że
strategy.
porównywanie do tego, co wcześniej
However,
prezentowaliśmy, byłoby
comparing
skuteczne
the
i
segments in a
niewłaściwe,
way
bo
that
w tej chwili
in which we
sposób
compared them
prezentacji
previously,
jest
it
inny.
wouldn't be
Myślę, że warto
effective.
będzie bazą do tego,
This
żeby
new system is
porównywać
different.
wewnętrzne działania firmy i sukcesy.
So we will have to talk about our internal successes and challenges in specific segments of the company. Let's start with upstream and supply.
To był najważniejszy segment w naszym
This was the most important segment in our activity in the first quarter. It helped the most when it comes to our financial results. What's important for us, and what we've mentioned in the strategy, is that we decided to follow other companies and to start strategic cooperation with big players on the market to develop business, to develop new competencies, new contacts, new relations. What's incredibly important is that we signed an agreement about cooperation with Naftogaz in Ukraine. We are supplying American LNG through the port in Szczecin and Klaipėda. We've already realized a few supplies. The next one is currently ongoing to Klaipėda. We want to be the next element in the supply chain of gas, and in the future, I really do hope in the reconstruction of destroyed Ukraine. With Equinor, that is the biggest Norwegian company, we started cooperation when it comes to the identification of potential about capture of CO2, both in the Northern Sea and also what is important for us in our region of the Baltic Sea and in Poland. As a result, we are developing our own exploitation. We've got 2 oil fields in Wielkopolska, 100 million cubic meters. We started exploitation. In Norwegia, we are starting new exploitation in our new deposits. In the biggest deposit, ORLEN Group, we started exploitation of that, and we are preparing 5 new contracts. There are 5 new possibilities of gas extractions. We do hope that we will be able to start works on these fields. Our retail competencies grew as well when it comes to gas.
Nie tyle oddaliśmy, ile przyjęliśmy 2 nowe gazowce w Korei.
We acquired 2 new gas carriers in Korea. They will support our possibilities of gas supply to our consumers, as well our possibility in trading of gas in Europe. And what is important, what we've been observing for a long time, we started supplies of LNG from the contract Venture Global. 1 gas carrier came to us, the second one is still ongoing. We are expecting the next supplies from this client. It is incredibly important that this started. However, this doesn't change our approach to the solution of the debate from the past. The arbitrage is ongoing, and we will demand that the gas that wasn't supplied will be treated within the contract. And to finalize this segment, I'd like to say a few words about our Polish gas company. Gas is an incredibly important part of the company. It brings a lot of contribution to our financial results. All of that wouldn't be possible without work and capabilities of the former Polish oil mining and gas extraction company. I think it has never been said by the president of ORLEN, but I would like to thank these people that they've joined us, that they are with us, that they are bringing a lot to our work. I would like to say that we are proud that they are a part of ORLEN. Thank you for that. Segment Downstream.
No to jest wyzwanie.
This is a challenge for everybody, not
Dlatego,
only for
że
us.
po pierwsze makro
First
jest
of all,
bardzo niekorzystne dla tego segmentu.
Macro is
Szczególnie marże
very bad for this segment,
petrochemiczne
especially petrochemical
w
margins.
historycznym dołku.
They are in a
Ale
historical
oprócz
low.
tego, że makro nie sprzyja,
However,
wyzwaniem
apart from
są
that, there are
regulacje,
also challenges when it comes to regulations,
presja technologiczna.
as well as
Czyli konieczność
technological
obniżania
pressure.
emisji.
That is the need to lower
Wyniki
emissions.
operacyjne tego segmentu
However, the
w
operational
bardzo
results in
dobre.
ORLEN are very good.
Pokazują umiejętności,
They
kompetencje
show our
ludzi,
competences and
zarządzania,
skills,
managementu.
management,
Jesteśmy z tego
and
zadowoleni,
we are
choć
very
wyniki
happy about that.
finansowe niestety
However, the financial
makro temu nie
results,
odpowiadają.
because of macro,
Ale
doesn't really
biorąc to pod uwagę, że
follow.
największe wyzwania
But
są
taking that into account,
rozpoczęliśmy pracę
we've started
w całej grupie do
works
tego,
in the
aby
whole group
zmniejszać wpływ tego downstreamu na
to
środowisko.
diminish the influence of
Nawiązaliśmy
downstream
wcześniej już
on the
korporacje
environment.
współpracę i
We
staraliśmy
started
się
a
udział w tym
cooperation
nawet firmy
with High Star, a Norwegian company. They are producing hydrolyzers for zero-emission hydrogen. We believe that we will be able to produce a lot of hydrogen, and as a result, we will significantly lower production of hydrogen, as well as lower the cost of production of our refineries.
Ten sam fundusz
The same fund invested in technology of cleaning artificial products. This will be an important part of our functioning in the future. I can't say more today, but it looks like that our analysis indicate that this is a highly advanced technology. It will help us to recycle plastics in such a way that they will be able to be used later also in transportation. They've got high requirements for their raw materials. Within these works, with these conceptual works about changes in technology and lowering of our emission footprint, we started a cooperation with the Polish Technical University, and when it comes to synthetic biofuels, supporting decarbonization of our fuels. We'll be working on new ideas, looking for funds, as well as building necessary infrastructure. We've also started talks with the market, that is, the potential producers, institutions, research institutions. We want to introduce the technology of ammoniac, which would support the works in Vanwilla in Wrocławek. At the same time, it would help us to produce cheaper hydrogen. The next segment, which is very important when it comes to our financial results, is energy. And here, 2 days ago, as you well know, we've noticed important things when it comes to construction of our farm, Baltic Power, which we are building together with Northland. We introduced a installation base in Weber. It will be overseeing maintenance when it comes to building of the 76 piles and wind turbines. 14 monopiles are already installed. Turbines, as well as other piles, will be installed this year. We are convinced that the farm will start its operations in the first half a year of the next year. We are also starting the project Baltic East with the power of 1 gigawatt. We are currently working when it comes to environmental agreements. What is super important for us is that we started talks with potential suppliers of technologies, as well as products supporting the development of this farm. We want the local content, that is, Polish products, when it comes to Baltic East, would be at the level of 40–50%. It will be an important increase compared to Baltic Power. In Baltic Power, the local content is at the stage of 21%. Apart from these works, we also want to say that what is important is the way of supplying this energy to our clients. This is the task that will be realized by Group Energa in the northern Poland. As you know, we signed a contract within the National Recovery Plan. We received around 7 million zlotych. It will help us to modernize the network of distribution of electricity to the consumers. This is an enormous task. Grids in Poland are not very well taken of, especially in the northern Poland. I think the value of the project will be 40 million zlotych. We've already started them this year, and we joined 300 kilowatts from National Recovery Plan. We also joined 12,000 new consumers. We really do care about this project, and I hope that it will serve both the consumers and Energa, the listed company, and it will build its value. And the fourth segment, the most visible for the consumers, consumer products. It is calculated a little bit differently than in the past. We've also added here gas and electricity consumers to this segment. That's why comparing that to the previous periods wouldn't really give us the proper results. We really do care about the development of this segment, especially when it comes to electromobility. In Germany, we started cooperating with a company thanks to which we will build 200 quick charging points, which will increase our influence on the market. But the most important part for us is the Vitaj program. It is a platform of relation that we have with our clients, the retail clients, those who buy gas or electricity. This is developing incredibly quickly. We've got 200,000 new consumers when it comes to Vitaj. When it comes to gas and electricity consumers, this number grew by 20,000, and this is our core business. But ORLEN is the biggest Polish company, is the biggest company in the Central Europe. It also has different goals and aims, which are also very important. Social gains, goals that serve to create closer links with the countries and communities in which we operate. And the social goals are no less important than our other goals. As you know, since the first conference, the situation in our refining plants is very important. I can say that the index that is called LTIFR is very complicated. We won't go into details. In the past, it was 142, and this year it was insignificantly lower. I'm very proud of that because it shows the scale of involvement of management and our care that everybody is safe, that everyone can go safely home and feel comfortable in the company. We've also started the ORLEN Transition Plan. It shows in what way we will lower our carbon footprint and negative impact on the environment. We'll publish it soon. Hopefully, it will be a topic of debate in the future with those to which the project is directed to. We are open to feedback and also critical voices. In the first quarter, we've also achieved a high assessment organized by Rating CDP. This result was possible because of the implementation and reporting of our emissions when it comes to climate policy. But ORLEN is also about social projects. We've started one of them in the last quarter. It is incredibly important for us, and we are very proud that we take part in it. We are engaged in actions to support climate, but it also shows our willingness to cooperate with science. I'm talking about Antarctica. Polish researchers from chemistry and biochemistry from Polish Science Academy, together with ORLEN, started works in Antarctica. Their goal is to create a new bioreserve in Antarctica. As to now, only 0.2% of Antarctica is protected. That's why the development of these areas is incredibly important. It will also show the competences of our scientists in this field. It also shows the willingness of Poland to protect the global heritage of nature. Internally, we started a program about which we haven't really talked a lot about publicly. From my observation and talks within the company, it seems that the program really worked out. It's really important and moving. It's applying to sensitivity of our employees, especially our female employees. We would like our company to be more inclusive. We hope that this initiative that was created with an aim to develop talents, but also a platform to develop talents internally, especially of our female colleagues. We hope that they can develop as leaders in the company, but also that they can develop as female employees. We hope that they can also develop their private goals. We will also support the company. I would like to thank all of my female colleagues. Magda, it's also thanks to you. When it comes to Science University in Silesia, together with them, we've opened a new university degree. It will start this year. I hope that thanks to this, and also together with our colleagues from energy companies, we can count on the fact that we will have new employees skilled and taught by this university. And the last thing from this category, a cultural program worth 12 million zlotych, support for cultural classes for children in smaller towns. We are very proud. And the last thing, we've been talking about this previously, but now we can say it publicly, a program of support to firefighters, especially when it comes to buying new equipment, as well as special workshops. All of that grew by 50%. The project will be worth 20 billion zlotych. Ladies and gentlemen, we are changing ORLEN. As we said on the 9th of January, the base of this change is honesty, engagement, as well as trustworthiness. This is the base of our relationships with clients, with stakeholders, with shareholders, with the NGOs environment. Based on these fundamentals, we are building the new company and we are changing the company. I hope that it is well visible in the results of the first quarter. I would like to ensure you that the big challenge that is ahead of us will be realized by us. We are only at the beginning. Thank you very much. Magda, now it's your turn. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to see you here and to welcome you during the presentation of the financial results of the first quarter of 2025. I will start with something that Irek already mentioned, that is the fact that we've changed the way in which we present our segments. I'm sure that you've noticed that those of you who already looked at our info pack already noticed this change, but we will also see that on the slides. We've changed the way in which we present the results, and we've changed the segments. That's something that we've already mentioned during the presentation of Strategy 2023. The energy of tomorrow starts today. These new segments reflect our strategy. We've talked about the fact that our strategy is about an integrated ecosystem, and that's how we manage our company on a daily basis. We will be also presenting our operational results in this way. What is important, all of the information that I will be showing you today are things that we can compare. That is, we've transformed the data from the last year to the same structure. As a result, you will see data that can be compared to each other. Why are we changing the structure of our presentation and the changing of management? We want to reflect this integrated character of our business. As a result, we also want to show the changeability of the market. We'll have a dedicated slide that will present this changeability. It will show how we build resilience of the company and our financial results. This integrated cyclical model is today very important. Today, that is in the moment in time, the historical moment in time where changeability in the market is very high. We are continuously working in the situation of a big unknown. I can say that the only thing that we can be sure about is that the future will be still very much changeable and unknown. This integrated system gives us a sense of stability. That was just a few words of introduction. Now let's focus on the most important in financial results and operational results. Irek mentioned that this quarter was very good. Opening the discussion, I would like to say that yet again, it was a very important quarter with a lot of work and good results. Income resulted to more than 73 billion. It's 9 billion lower than last year, but what's important, it doesn't really influence the possibility of ORLEN. ORLEN is influenced by the global market. This is how we shape prices to our consumers. What does influence the business is volumes, operational activities, the real effects of work of our employees. Let's focus on the income for a bit. What influence smaller income? Lower prices of petrochemical and refinery products, as well as lower prices of gas and fuels. We also had lower sales volumes when it comes to downstream and consumers and products. It was compensated to a certain degree by an increase of sales of gas as well as distributed volumes in energy. What is still the most important index when it comes to profitability and what was marked by Irek is EBITDA LIFO in our segment, in our sector. This is the index that tells us what the profitability is. Even though the macro environment was very changeable, we worked out 11.6 billion of EBITDA. That is 40% increase. This is the best reflection of the integrated business model and the fact that it really supports us when it comes to the situation on the market. We've been talking a lot about the fact that this integrated model helps our resilience. This is how EBITDA builds our resilience. The segments that contributed the most to the increase or that supported the result of EBITDA in these quarters are segments energy and consumers and products. They noted very solid operational results. They are partially restricted by downstream because of lower refining margins. However, what was an important support for our financial results was the result of regulations. That is the fact that we didn't have to support the final consumers. Last year, I will just remind you, in the first quarter, we've paid 7.7 billion to support our final consumers of energy. This year, the results of upstream and supply, which last year was influenced by this support, this year it's 5.5 billion of złotych. Our cash inflow grew by more than 4 billion złotych. This was supported by a lesser engagement of cash in the capital. At the end of the first quarter, our debt is around zero. However, I have to be more careful, and I have to say that together with the recommendation of dividend and our ambitious investment plan, this situation will be changing during the year. Let's take a look at these results. Let's focus on the materials and model margins, that is our macroeconomic environment. This macroeconomic environment was very changeable. We can see that on these few diagrams that are presented here. I will just comment certain indexes as they relate to our operational segments. Segment upstream and supply, especially extraction, both in Poland and abroad, mainly in Norway. It was supported by higher gas prices. Gas prices year on year were higher by 54%. This result was restricted by lower prices of oils. I would just remind you that 75% of our activity is related to gas and 1/4 is about oil. However, the increase itself influenced negatively when it comes to our financial results. In the downstream segment, what is the most important thing is the lower refining margin, which is lower by 46% year on year. This is a result of normalization of refining margin. They are at a very high, healthy level. What we've observed during the previous quarters, that is very high levels in 2022 and 2023, was mainly linked to problems of the market after the pandemic, as well as the Russian aggression on Ukraine. These lower levels of margins, both refining and petrochemical, will have their consequences in the results of downstream segment. The petrochemical segment and margins, which are lower by 31%, these are also results of a very hard market environment in the petrochemical segment. Here we have a very high supply of products imported from the United States and Asia. Energy. Here we can observe a positive impact of the prices of electricity. They grew by 38%. However, we have to remember that the price for the final consumers is still limited within the regulations. Let's take a look at EBITDA. As we said, this is the most important index. It is really worthwhile to focus on its development in this quarter. Taking into account this changeable environment that we've mentioned and market trends, the results of each of our segments are very good. The two most contributing segments are upstream and supply, as well as energy. The higher part of our slide shows you the contribution of each segment to the result of EBITDA. At the very bottom, you can see the changes year on year. Now, very shortly, I'd like to tell you about the key elements that influence these changes when it comes to upstream and supply. Lack of gas write-down, higher sales volumes, and negative macro environment, especially influencing gas trading, as well as lower spreads. Downstream, normalization of margins, something that we've looked at a second ago, maintaining market pressure in petrochemistry, as well as lower sales volumes. Energy. Here, the most important factor was sales volumes as tariffs, both for gas and electricity. Consumers and products. Here, I'll just remind you, this is an important change to our way of thinking. Since this year, we are introducing in consumers and products both sales of fuels and electricity and gas to our final consumers. Here, the change year on year is the effect of a good result of gas trading, supported by higher sales volumes. And now going to the details for the segments, we'll have 4 slides that we talk about the details, upstream and supply. Here we have EBITDA for the level of 5.4 billion, and it is higher than last year. We are presenting you the results of this segment split into geography. In Poland and abroad, mainly in Norway. Both of these markets, Poland and Norway, are responsible for 90% of our exploitation volumes. That's why they are the most important for us, both in our daily work as well as in communication of our results. It is worth to notice that. Here you can see that 75% we are exploiting gas and only in 25% oil. The daily average of exploitation is 210 kboe, and this is a little bit lower than last year. It's a natural consequence of the finishing of the reserves, as well as failure in one of the reserves. What is important, our team in Norway very actively answered to the failure by increasing exploitation of other reserves. In Poland, we exploited 9.6, or we produced 9.6 terawatt hours and 1.7 million of BOE. In Norway, 12 terawatts of hour and 2.8 BOE. And it gives us EBITDA at the level of 2.2 billion in Poland and 2.7 of exploitations in Norway. What was important and what we've seen in the previous slides, that something that supported the results of the exploitation segment are gas prices, which grew by more than 50%. They were limited by 10% when it comes to lowering of the gas prices, as well as strengthening zloty against Norwegian crown. Gas is more than 4 billion EBITDA, and here we've got the adjusted effect of the lower spreads. the level of margins of gas was lower, and even though we had higher sales volumes, the result was lower by 6.3 billion in this segment. I've also mentioned that what is very important about profitability of upstream and supply is the regulational effect, as well as the fact that we didn't have to support the final consumers. According to our strategic assumption, we are working on increasing the exploitation volumes in the Norwegian shelf. We will take a closer look at our investment later, but here I would just like to say that in upstream and supply we are planning more than 11 billion of investment, and Yggdrasil and Lifernis are valued up to 3 billion in here. The main player is Aker BP, and we participate in that. This is one of the key investments in this segment. Downstream. Here, Irek also introduced this segment a little bit. This year, the situation is hard. It is really hard to manage this segment because of the market and macroeconomic environment. It can be also seen in the results of the segment. Downstream is 1.7 billion this year, as well as we noted a lowering by more or less 1 billion. We noted that both in refining and petrochemistry. In refining, the results are influenced by a weaker micro environment, a lower refining margin. They were lower by 46%. This translates directly to profitability of production. We've also noted a lowering of volumes. Sales volumes were lowered by 4%. The most important lowerings were connected with oil. These were the results of the lowering demand. We noted a lower demand on the market, a high activity of our competitors. Operationally, we also had restrictions connected with plant maintenance stoppage in Płock. Then we also had maintaining stoppage in other places which are mainly planned, so we expected these results would influence positively the results of downstream as well as refining activity, where higher margins as well as strengthening złoty against the dollar. In petrochemistry, what we've already mentioned, this effect is so important that it is worth repeating. Petrochemistry is still dealing with very hard environment. Petrochemistry margin were lower. We've also noted a lowering of sales volumes in all of our product groups in petrochemistry. Together, these were lower by 12%. The sales of fertilizer, for example, was lower by 16%, and this is mainly because of stoppage in Polana in our Czech partner. We are planning a restructurization of these assets in Polana because of the economic situation. We also had stoppage of work in Anfield. There we had a power failure which influenced volumes of production and sales. We also have lower PTA sales volumes by 1/3 and polyolefin by almost 10%. This is because of stoppage in the first quarter. Additionally, the results of our petrochemistry results were negatively influenced by the strengthening of the euro against the dollar. The next segment, energy. Here we've got higher EBITDA by 4.3 billion, as well as grew by 0.6 billion. The increase of this result is mainly because of distribution. Distribution volumes, both when it comes to energy and gas, grew. There were higher tariffs realized by our operators. Another factor that supported our financial results was heating. We had a colder winter compared to the last year. The temperature was lower. That's why sales volumes were higher. Hydrological and weather conditions were much harder, and they didn't support generating renewable energy results. Even though we had a bigger power in renewable energy, we've noted a lower result of EBITDA in this segment. And this negatively influenced the segment. Segment energy, what we've also seen at the very beginning presented by Irek, this is a segment in which we concentrate on development and in which we are planning important investments. We will talk about the details later, but here I would just like to say that investment in offshore wind production, as well as opening of port in Łeba, which will be a service and maintenance base. This is something that we've built from scratch. The infrastructure that we've constructed there together with our partner will be very important for supporting the future offshore wind. We are also building 2 CCTGs in Grudziądz and Ostrołęka, and we want to invest 60 million złotych. They will produce 1.3 gigawatts, and we will take a look at the details later when it comes to the slide about investments. And the last operational segment, consumers and products. Here we've got 1.2 EBITDA LIFO, and it was more or less 50-50 fuels and others. The increase of the result can be seen in retail when it comes to gas and oil. Here we've got a better results because of the better results of gas, because we had higher sales volumes. When it comes to fuels, it is worth noting that we maintain the profitability of selling fuels in Poland, bettering of profitability in Germany and Lithuania, as well as higher margins. They grew in the Czech Republic and in Poland. Some details when it comes to volumes. The sales of fuels was lower by 2%, and this is mainly because of lower sales in Austria. This is the result of a decision that we took last year about eliminating sales of cheaper fuels that came from Russia. This resulted in consumers turning to our competitors. We have more or less 3,000 fueling stations. The alternative fueling stations grew by more or less 90%, and these are mainly electricity refueling points, that is, electricity charges. And now investments. The group used 6.2 billion złotych for investments. This can be compared to the situation last year. In the perspective of the whole year, we are maintaining our prognosis or our assumption of spending 35 billions. 75%, these are investments connected with developments. And now let's take a look at the segments. Very rarely we get to take a look at the details, so I think this is one of the best occasions to do so. In upstream and supply, we are also looking for new reserves, and we are analyzing new reserves. We have successes and one, well, let's say failure. One exploitation in Tomcat and one other place. Here we don't really have a confirmation of hydrocarbon in the reserves. As a result, we have to change our plans. We've planned 1 billion zloty for this project, but we will have to be very flexible about allocation of the capital to the MNH projects. That is the possibility of buying the deposits. We've also talked about this during the presentation of strategy, that in our allocation of capital, we want to be flexible and to realize our strategy through our own work and organic growth as well as non-organic work. The next exploratory project is something that gave us a big success and something that we've talked about a few days ago, that is ORLEN Upstream Nowhere Together with other companies discovered new reserves of hydrocarbon in Idrospekt. Here we assess it to be 3 to 7 million BOE. When it comes to our reserves, we focus mainly on Fenris and Yggdrasil. Here we continue our works connected with prefabrication and installation of the construction of platforms, and it's supposed to take place this year. Segment Downstream. Here we have very important investment works in two important investments. The first investment, new chemistry project, that is installation of plants to project monomers in Płock. Here we have the project advanced in 83%. When it comes to basic construction, we are going forward. However, we are talking with the consortium when it comes to technical issues and financial issues, and we are keeping the agenda up to date when it comes to supporting infrastructure. Here we are at the 40% level, and here the works are getting faster. The main results of the quarter is the fact that we are focusing on the annexes, that we sanction all the changes. Another important investment in Downstream is the installation for in Mažeikiai in Lithuania. This installation is worth 1 billion euro, and here we are very advanced when it comes to both the main installation and supporting infrastructure. A few examples: finalization of pipeline, piles, construction of equipment. As you can see, the works are ongoing. Energy. Here I will focus on the offshore wind plant in Baltic. In 2026, we will have the first energy produced by this offshore wind plant, Baltic Power. Here we are preparing to the installation of turbines. Irek mentioned monopiles that are currently being installed. We've mentioned maintenance base in Łeba a few times. The level is at a very advanced level. Another neighboring project, Baltic East. Here we are still ongoing when it comes to dialogues about the environment. We are focusing on the strategy when it comes to buying and using local content as in a maximized way. Another investment in energy, blocks in Ostrołęka and Grudziądz. And some examples from the last quarter. In Ostrołęka, we have constructed the next parts of the plant. We are at the advanced level when it comes to pipeline. In Grudziądz, here the works are still ongoing. pipelines, and so on. We are at the very advanced stages. Here, I would like to draw attention to certain things. I will start with something very good, something that we haven't mentioned yet. Yesterday, we received a confirmation of Moody's Energy, A3 with stabilized perspective. It is a very trustworthy reflection of our resilience, of our business model. The financial position of the group is very good. At the end of the first quarter, we had 1.6 milliard net cash. We reduced our debt mainly because of a good generation of cash from our core business. The debt is almost zero, and what is also important and worth highlighting is the fact that we achieved very good effects when it comes to sources of funding. They are very well diversified. With the average deadline 2029, you may remember that at the beginning of the year we issued bonds in American dollar, and this issuance allowed us to postpone this deadline by 1 year. It is super important because this structure helps us to mitigate the risks. And the last slide that we would like to share with you. Here we would like to talk about the potential results of the group this year. I will focus about the changeability of the first quarter and about our expectations to in this year when it comes to upstream and supply. Here, macroeconomic environment, higher prices of gas supported the results of upstream and supply. The positive effect of spread between Henry Hub, the American, and TTF, the European one, was maintained. This influenced the good results of import from the United States to Poland. The spread that we observe now is lower than the one that we observed 3 months ago. However, it still has a positive effect. Its scale changed, but this support is maintained. For other segments, the effects or trends that we observe are similar to what we've seen at the beginning of the year. It allows us to say that we feel comfortable with the consensus that we publish and after the expectations of all the analytics. However, I would say that we approach it a little bit more cautiously. We see a little bit more of risks, but we still think that our integrated model and effectiveness of operations will allow us to get expected results. Thank you very much for your attention. As I understand, now we have a time for questions and answers. Yes, thank you very much for the presentations. As you can see, well, talking about this business takes a lot of time because it's a big business and it has a big footprint and big influence when it comes to economy.
Teraz zaprosimy Państwa do zadawania pytań.
But now we would like to invite you to ask questions.
Zapraszamy. Mikrofony macie włączone. W pierwszej kolejności oddamy
The mics are turned on.
na sali.
First of all, we will invite people who are here with us.
Także w drugiej kolejności będziemy mieli
And then we will
pytania,
have
które
time to
spływają
answer
od
questions
internautów,
from
ale
the internet.
teraz może zaalokujemy. Pierwszy był pan po prawej, także jakbym mógł prosić
Please,
dla płynności naszej dyskusji 2
to make it fluent, 2-3 questions.
żeby nam było łatwiej to prowadzić. Proszę się też przedstawić.
And please tell us who you are.
Dzień dobry.
Good morning. I will have 4 questions, but they are connected. The first question is a very general one when it comes to consolidation of the market. When it comes to fuels, we had information about Shell and BP. We also heard from the market that there are another transactions going on. I would like to ask about a potential scenario when it comes to the situation on the market. That's the first question. Then I would like to ask about the perspective for the next months of this year. What do you think? How will the sales on the fuel station look like? The third question, Vitae platform and something that you've said, that you've talked about, that is integration of the system and the fact that is building this part of the business. I would like to ask about at what stage the platform is it being finalized? And the last question, a very traditional one, that is about selling of business, ORLEN Paczka. Where are we here and what will happen in the next months? Thank you very much for your question. Okay, I will just start. Consolidation of the market, Shell, BP, and our competitors. Our role in this market, in this segment, is a very small one. We are a very big player. We can't consolidate the market. We are observing the situation because that's what we have to do. We observe what our colleagues from our other companies do. If Shell and BP joined forces, then they will become the second biggest network in Poland. They will have more than 1,000 fueling stations. We'll cooperate because that's what I can say. That's something that's outside of our realm. Similar to MOL. MOL is our client, but at the same time, there are certain history between us when it comes to stations in Hungary. This is something that will stimulate us to work forward. What about sales? I hope that the sales will be going well. The prices are lowering according to Eurostat. We've got one of the lower prices when it comes to fuels in Europe. The average price was 5.75. I would just remind you of our campaign from the first May weekend. The fuel could be bought, could be bought by lower prices. That's why we'll be fighting for a very high influence of the market when it comes to the status of Vitae. I don't know. I don't know if we are prepared. Do you know anything about that? Yes, we are working on that. Both when it comes to technology of the development of the application, you can observe the changes on a daily basis, but at the same time we are working on creating an integrated offer for final consumers. And here it is too early to say when the offer will be available. However, the works are ongoing and you will see them in an application if you use it daily. And ORLEN Paczka. Here we've done a lot of work already. We have some key successes in the first quarter. We optimized the activity of our parcel lockers as well as our delivery services through ORLEN Paczka. So we split our delivery service from ORLEN Paczka. Today we've got an integrated business within ORLEN Paczka and the team which concentrates on the development of this activity. In the future, we will focus on building a precise value of this business, working on finding partners or selling the business. We don't really have a precise plan today that we could share with you, but we are on a very good pathway to realize the plan of optimization when it comes to actives in this area.
Do sali.
Bartłomiej Sawicki, Rzeczpospolita. Chciałem zapytać o 3 kwestie. Zgodnie ze strategią zapowiadaliście Państwo rozpoczęcie prac nad pozyskaniem złóż w Stanach Zjednoczonych. Na jakim etapie są te rozmowy? Chciałem także zapytać o plany dotyczące rynku mocy w elektroenergetyce. Mamy aukcję
Rynek mocy.
na gazu. Jakie są plany?
What are the plans
Pod koniec tego roku
at the end of the year?
o inwestycjach.
And I would like to also ask about investments in renewable energy when it comes to your competitors. You've mentioned BP. In their strategy, they recently decided to downsize their investment when it comes to green technologies. Thank you.
Stany Zjednoczone
The
bardziej
United States.
mniej mówiliśmy chyba o złożach.
We've talked less about reserves, but more about midstream, and this is the segment that we would like to be engaged in when it comes to transmission. And
Prowadzimy rozmowy.
we are currently having talks.
Kolejne rozmowy.
In the future, we will continue them if we invest. Please notice that I say if we invest. This will be connected with access to upstream. I don't know when we have the decisions. These are very hot topics. They're requiring analyzing the market, access to the market, prices. But I hope that we will be able to achieve our goals in a short perspective. Capacity market.
Aukcja dogrywkowa powinna być w lipcu. I
Additional auction should take place in July. I would like to be ready with 2 projects, Grudziądz 2 and Gdańsk. We don't know if we are ready. Everything depends on talks with potential suppliers. On our side, of the works when it comes to these actions are done. We are only waiting for the offers from our partners. If we have these offers, we will participate in July, if not in December. For December, we are preparing Siekierki project, and we hope that it will be launched then, and that will get necessary agreements. Renewable energy, this is a big challenge for everybody. BP might be looking at the issue globally. In its strategy change at the beginning of the year, they assume that part of the business will be moved from Europe, where the pressure, especially the legal pressure, is so high that they don't really see any possibility of development, and they transfer to the regions where the legal pressure is lower. Here I'm talking about expectations of legislators when it comes to renewable energy. We don't have such comfort when it comes to this issue, but at the same time we're analyzing all the projects that we have, and we can see potential for the company in developing renewable energy sources. That's why we're talking about offshore wind plants. That's why we are seeing a possibility that we will be realizing these projects. Thank you.
To już może w pierwszym rzędzie tutaj? Za kolejnością zgłoszeń spróbuję.
Dziękuję. Moja nazwisko
Andrzej Patynowski.
Andrzej Patynowski.
Andrzej Patynowski.
Będzie mi ciężko mówić, jestem 32 godziny.
It will be hard for me. I haven't been sleeping for 32 hours.
Czujemy panu, ale
Oh, we are sorry, but the interpreter can't hear the question.
ORLEN posiada ponad 90%.
ORLEN has more than 90% of shares of Energa. During the last conference, you stated that the results,
Jednak kodeks spółek
the sentence was carried out. However, the Codex of Listed Companies states that the listed company should
stan, jaki by istniał. Jeśli
go back to the previous state. If the general meeting hasn't
czy spółka zamierza
carried out the sentence, first of all, does the company
spółek handlowych w tej sprawie
want to
wyrok w całości
carry out the sentence wholly? First of all, has the listed company
uchwały lub
put aside
środki na
sources for potential
akcjonariuszy mniejszościowych?
payouts for the shareholders?
Panie prezesie, pan wspomniał, że ile urósł Orlen, tak?
You've also mentioned the growth of ORLEN. During the last conference, you've also mentioned the growth of Energa.
Pańskim
So, what about the losses of Energa? The interpreter can't hear the question asked of Mike.
Bardzo dziękuję, że pan jest z nami.
Thank you that we are here with us.
I bardzo dziękuję, że pan jest z Energią od początku.
Thank you that you are supporting Energa.
Energia jest bardzo ważnym elementem
Energa is a very important
Orlenu.
element of ORLEN. We've talked about this at the beginning. We've talked about the amount of money that we invest in Energa and the grid that Energa oversees. We are proud that Energa is a part of ORLEN.
Rozumiem tego pierwszego
I don't understand the first question.
pytania, szczerze powiem. Wykonaliśmy wyrok.
We've carried out the sentence. It was very simple.
Mieliśmy wycofać wniosek z KNF.
We were to delete the application when it comes to buying out about the shareholders, that is delisting. We did that. That's why the shares are still publicly available, and if someone wants to get rid of them, they can sell them.
Czy mamy środki zabezpieczone?
Do we have money put aside? We don't have a reserve created for that because we don't have any legal basis to do so.
Nie ma żadnego konkretnego
There is no sentence that would oblige us to do so. If you are asking theoretically,
w takiej sytuacji mamy środki finansowe. Pani prezes Bartoś przedstawiała naszą sytuację.
President Bartosz talked about our financial situation, and I can assure that if there was such a need, we do have financial resources. I don't remember from the last conference what the Energa
Przed chwilą to było
results was. Well,
2,70. Teraz ja mówię,
it's lowering. When I'm done, I will give you a voice.
No, to jest rynek finansowy. To jest rynek.
This is a financial market. Here, the actions are growing. They were going down. I do understand the market. I've been a broker for some years. The question was asked of Mike. The interpreter can't hear the question asked of Mike.
Sytuacja została rozwiązana.
The situation was solved.
Akcjonariuszy mniejszościowych
The goal of shareholders
wniosku o delisting.
was to delete the delisting. It was carried out.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very much.
Ale
Zapraszamy.
bardzo panu dziękuję za angażowanie. To
But
tak buduje
thank
nasze-
you very much for your engagement. It builds our conviction that we are trying to do the good thing and that sometimes we have to disagree. I do understand. But the goal
Przyświeca
of Energa developing is something that is important for both of you and us.
Przez lata
Przepraszam
był.
bardzo.
Przez lata
The
były
interpreter can't hear.
okresy, kiedy cena wynosiła prawie
For years there have been possibilities and there were periods where the price were up to 40 złotych.
Dobrze.
Współczuję panu z tego punktu widzenia, ale łączy nas.
Well, we both care about Energa.
Przepraszam, mamy trochę pytań z sali.
I'm sorry, you still have some questions in the room. I would like to move forward.
Panie prezesie, jedno pytanie.
One question. Karol Byzdra, Energetyka 24. In April, ORLEN talked about acquisition of ORLEN Olefiny. I would like to ask about the process. What is still to be done? Will be there any costs? The acquisition of ORLEN Olefiny is at the legal stage, analysis of legal stages. I cannot add anything.
Następne pytanie, Mateusz.
Dzień dobry, Rafał Zasuń, Wysokie
Rafał Zasuń, Wysokie Napięcie.pl.
Aukcje mocowe.
I would like to ask about power auctions
Bardzo napięty i czy
because the market of gas-fired power plants is very hot. I'm asking about Siekierki here. Will that be built at the same time? And up to what time will you have to have the offers from your contractors so we can start in auctions? And the second question is about arbitrage with Venture Global.
Zacznę od drugiego, bo
I'll start with the second question because it's easier. I wouldn't say that it's
szczególnie międzynarodowe
going slowly. International arbitrage has its own way of working and the deadlines are very fast. So I think that this year we won't see any changes. Magda, please remind me, but I think that the first meetings from arbitrage will take place in January of the next year. So they're not going very slowly. This is a standard procedure of the international process.
A pierwsze pytanie, to zdradzę.
The first question, I would just tell you that at 12 I have a meeting with Siemens CEO, and we were talking about that because it is one of our suppliers. I hope that we will get these offers when it comes to the deadline, so we can apply in July. I hope as fast as possible. On the second hand, well, if we are working in this business, we know what the offers will be when it comes to the framework. So apart from the fact that we don't have the offer, we still are preparing for the auction. So even if we get the results very late, I think we'll be ready in July to participate with these two projects, Grudziądz 2 and Gdańsk. Thank you. Julia Cedełko, Polityka Insight. I have two questions. I would like to ask about integration of retail when it comes to cooperation side. How is it going? Do you have any formal procedure, like with Upstream, what you've published? And the second question, about 5 investments in gas in Norway that you've mentioned. Will there be enough to realize strategic goals when it comes to exploitation in Norway? What will the volumes will be? Are there new reserves, old reserves? Can you say anything more? The so-called Kangaroo project is still ongoing. We are currently analyzing this project. I can't really say when we be able to realize this project, but this is a very hard project also when it comes to the legal situation. I can only promise you that our intention is to finalize the project as quickly as possible, but it's not easy. The 5 new deposits that we've mentioned, they are the new deposits. They are at the environmental decision stage, and we are analyzing these deposits. So 3 of them will be launched, so we have to check the economic value of these deposits. If we have decision to launch this exploitation, well, this process will take a few years, so don't expect any of them this year. We don't know anything about the volumes yet.
Pozwolił dać szansę naszym
I'd
internautom.
like to give voice to our to those of us who mentioned us online. Agnieszka Stachurska, Petronews.
Tak, kolega Damian. O, proszę, dziękuję.
We know that river transportation in New Chemistry is delayed because it got simply stuck on the river with large volume elements. Will it have any influence on the agenda of this investment? Well, certainly it will influence our agenda, but it's not very important. They are not significant. We will be able to
Deszcz ma padać, tam ktoś podpowie.
change the situation in the future.
Kciuki za deszcz. Bardzo proszę.
To ja wrócę do internetu.
I will just go back to our questions online. We have many questions there. For the majority of them will be answered online, but we'll just
Zdaniem są najistotniejsze.
ask 3 questions.
Pierwsze z nich to już łącząc z nową chemią.
Something about New Chemistry, a short update.
O projekcie Nowa Chemia.
Someone is asking about an update when it comes to New Chemistry. Is it following the new agenda and planned volumes? Yes, it is going as planned. Our plan is clear. On the 30th of September, we would like to present our approach to this project. We want to have a complex approach and nothing changes when it comes to that.
Kolejne z pakietu inwestycyjnego.
investment package. Recently, when it comes to offshore, the information about inflation was widespread. Do you see any influence on your project? We do know that some projects realized abroad are facing financial pressure and investors drawback. But we are in Poland, we are in a different situation. We are pioneers in the market. The weather condition, the wind conditions on the Baltic Sea are very good, so we are quite optimistic when it comes to our projects. When it comes to our subcontractors, we are noticing certain, I don't want to say delays, but maybe challenges that they are facing. They are connected to the fact that there are many orders for new equipment, because we've also ordered a new type of turbines. There are certain technological challenges. However, we don't see any significant indicators that would tell us that the project will be delayed or that will be more expensive. That's the answer for today. And the last question from the same area. There are going consultations when it comes to atomic nuclear power plants in Poland. Does ORLEN take part in this discussion and other discussion about SMRs? Obviously that we are engaged, but not in a very high scale. Right now, we are one of a very few advanced players when it comes to introduction of these technologies in Poland. We get very positive information from Canada when it comes to agreements given by the governing institutions when it comes to the next licenses. This is something very positive. 2 months ago, I was in Darlington with Minister Czarnecki. We've seen the development of the project. It is going very well, and our Canadian colleagues are very optimistic. I think 2 weeks ago, the first cost analysis were published. In the first analysis, we can see an increase of costs, but after detailed analysis, we can see that it's resulted by factors that are not present in Poland. So we are still interested in this project. We've mentioned that up to 2035 we want to have 2 SMRs. This question wasn't asked, but I'm certain that it will. We are still negotiating with our partner when it comes to the new shape of functioning of this project. It is going beyond what we ambitiously assumed we will be able to achieve, but I hope that we will find a consensus with our partner. Thank you. Thank you very much for all your questions. Thank you to everyone online. Thank you for all the questions. If something wasn't answered, it will be answered in writing. Thank you very much for the presentation. Please enjoy coffee and see you in September.